Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by Congressional Reporter Samantha-Jo Roth. SJ, there's been this standoff, obviously we've talked about it for quite a long time, about the debt ceiling. Now things are starting to get a little more real. There's a bill that's actually passed the House. Senate Democrats say it's dead on arrival, but they want to have hearings on it and sort of investigate what they say the consequences of it would be. Anyway, what are the sorts of things that we're hearing?
So yeah, they're absolutely holding their hearings. They had the very first one today, and they're trying to delegitimize this bill. And they're basically trying to say that it's going to hurt the economy, it's going to hurt jobs, these cuts. And basically Republicans are pushing back, saying we're not going to just raise the debt ceiling for no reason. So we're hearing a lot of posturing, not a lot of solutions. And I mean, I think obviously the deadline is much more dire. Janet Yellen said this week that it was going to be, June 1st. That's
Right.
less than a month away. Some people are saying that's, a little too early.
Right.
But I mean, it's all within the span of just a couple of weeks, and we know what it takes to get lawmakers to actually do things. It is deadlines around here. So, the standoff obviously continues without a clear solution right now.
Right, a whole lot of yelling in Washington. So, the hope, I think, was when they released that letter that it would increase the urgency. And maybe in some cases it did, because it did prompt the first White House meeting between the president and congressional leaders on this issue. There didn't seem to be any appetite for doing something like that until there was the updated deadline. But there does, at least on the Republican side, seem to be some skepticism about that June 1st date.
Yeah, a lot of lawmakers that I spoke with thought, they're just, making this up
Right.
just to raise the stakes a little bit. But, according to some of the economists that actually testified during this hearing, they did say that June 1st could be a worst case scenario. They are pointing to like June 8th being something that's a little bit more likely. But I mean, that is just around the corner. There is not a lot of working legislative days until that is. So the big question for me, obviously, is, is the House and the Senate going to, cancel their recess at the end of May in order to get this accomplished? Obviously, a lot of these deals don't necessarily happen when lawmakers are in session. So, Kevin McCarthy, the president, Schumer, whoever else is involved, should be able to do that even when lawmakers are on recess.
What's the posture that Senate Republicans have taken? I mean, Mitch McConnell, Senate Minority Leader, has a somewhat better relationship with the president, has been willing to deal with him on some things. Senate Republicans have at times been in lockstep with the House, at times not so much. Where have you taken their temperature and seen where they are today?
Well, I think obviously they're staying with what they've said all along, that they're not going to be involved, that this is really just between McCarthy and the president. And McConnell said that this week. But it is interesting because when you do speak with some Republicans, I asked, Senator Blackburn this week, at what point do you guys start to get involved here? And I think nobody's really willing to put their thumb on the scale and say what the red line technically is for the Senate to get involved. But even, today during this hearing, Romney really seemed to have a lot of criticism towards Senate Democrats, saying you guys haven't even produced your own plan. This, budget committee hasn't even met to discuss, some kind of proposal. So I think, you're starting to see a little bit of angst on the Republican side too, but officially what they're saying is that they're taking a backseat, as they've said.
And some of them do seem to be giving McCarthy some credit for at least being able to get a bill across the finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of them are pointing out that Democrats may have underestimated them. Democrats, even Schumer had said, I don't even know if McCarthy could get anything over 218 votes. Well, he actually did accomplish that. So that certainly is an accomplishment for McCarthy. And I think Republicans are giving him credit where credit is due. But, a lot of them are sticking with him, but at the same time, I think everyone wants something to get done. A lot of people are going to be looking at McConnell, who has successfully negotiated debt ceiling increases in the past.
Sure.
But he's made it very clear that he's not going to get involved.
And so the thing that makes this a little different than some of the artificial Washington deadlines is that even if the actual date is more approximate than precise, default is kind of a really risky thing economically, no?
Oh yeah, I mean, it would be absolutely catastrophic for the U.S. economy. It is not an outcome that anyone here on Capitol Hill wants. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants that. The big question is, how can both sides frame it as a win for them both? And I think that's going to be a challenge for both sides. But I don't think anyone wants this. And also, a lot of senators have told me that they don't want it to be a short-term increase.
Right.
They don't want to see this issue come back in the midst of a presidential election. It'd be so harmful for either side if this risk were to happen. So, we've got a couple more weeks. I think we've been talking about this since January. So hopefully we'll have a resolution come Tuesday. I'm really interested to see what happens out of this White House meeting.
Well, I mean, the big disagreement, if the worst case scenario happens, will be whether it's default of the Democrats or the Republicans.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think both sides are, regardless, going to look very bad if this actually happens. So I don't think anyone wants this.
Thanks, SJ. You can read Samantha-Jo and the rest of our political team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.